Mr. Bacchus, would you call the roll, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Harris? Here. Mr. Randolph?
Here.
Chairman Jones?
Here. Well, those are the three members present. So, next item on our agenda are opening remarks. I don't have any. So what I'll do, I'll turn it over to Mr. Harris, Dr. Harris.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, we're going to go back through a few of the maps. So the batting order is I'm going to go through a brief presentation of the changes that I made as a result of the last couple of meetings we had. We created 2 more maps from those. I think I'm going to be presenting one because I'm not sure the other one is complete yet, but if folks want to see it, I'll certainly present it. Then I'm going to go through a couple of a few community maps that have been submitted, and they sent me the rationale, so I'll go through those as well. And then I've got a person here from the public that would like to come and show their maps. All right?
Sound good.
All right, so this, of course, is just the current city map that we'll be going, well, 2021 map, I'm sorry. So I'll be referencing back and forth to the current map in comparison to the changes that were made since the last meeting. I did blow this up a little bit so you guys can see this better. These are the precincts. This is a question that came up at the meeting the other day. So these are just the precincts within the district, so that we will probably refer back to those as well. And then I've got a larger scale version that we can look at and zoom in if we need to see some other information.
And then if you don't mind, this is those numbers that we see, those are the
population numbers per precinct.
Gotcha, okay.
Now on the presentation, because they're not completely, the scaling is a little bit off because it's compressed. I'll show it to you in a scale PDF, and you'll be able to see the streets and all the numbers if you need to see them.
Okay.
Again, shapes that we're working with again. So I bring this every week.
Before you do that, let me confer with Mr. Bacchus on something. If you can go back a bit.
Go back.
It would be helpful if we can have this map printed out to have on display for the council members.
Okay. Large.
Yeah,
map.
large. So when we are...
No, he's talking about very large.
Right. So, as I talked about in the last meeting, to have something, whether it's sitting over to the side that people can get up and look at visibly, bigger than this, that they can see. So,
yeah. You want to show...
I've got a 24 by 36 if you need it. I don't know if that's big enough.
It needs to be bigger than that.
Okay, 36 by 48.
Yeah.
We can get our mapping.
From the jazz? Okay, great.
We can get them to make a board.
Good. Okay.
Display board, that's what I'm trying to
the display. And then a couple of them like that, too. So, but this is the first one that I would love us to have graphically displayed for us.
So you want showing the precincts with the population, and the other one is...
Well, this is just the first one. It could be some other ones, but this is the one that I really want folks to see because, well, then what would also be helpful is the current one, the one that we approved last year. So the 2021 that was currently on display here.
2022. Okay. So noted.
All right. I always bring the shapes to show everybody so you can we can be clear that these are symmetrical and they're not proportional precincts, that is. The last meeting, we talked a lot about potentially splitting precincts, and I'm going to show you. I made really all the changes that we talked about the last time. From map 7, I believe, or map 6, there was map 6, 5, 6, and 7 that we were looking at. I made those changes, and then we did split a few precincts. So this is kind of what Plan 8 looks like. As a result, then I'll go through that. If y'all don't mind, let me change screens. I'm going to scale this so we can see it a lot better. We can zoom in on the streets. All right. This is map proposal in Plan 8. There was a question about, I think Dr. Warren wanted to ensure that I want to say Volantown Evergreen, what would that look like if they were in 5 again? So that precinct is in there. There were a few blocks that I pulled out because of population, but the vast majority of the population itself, and that was sort of north of of his precinct. With the exception of a few blocks, it starts at Evergreen. I had to leave some of that in there for population purposes because it was taking District 7 down a little low. So those changes have been made. As a result of moving that, I had to take Central Gardens and put it sort of back the way it was, which was in City Council District 4. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me bring it a little closer. Okay, can you hear me better? Okay, all right. So we did make those changes, and we had to pull, I believe that precinct 1307, I believe that's the precinct number, back into 4. That's currently in 4 now. So that basically just takes it back to where it was. I did move some blocks or a part of an area in that precinct 1003. I believe that's the number. Part of what is, I think, the north part of the Hamilton area, I want to say north central part of Hamilton, just a few blocks so we could give more population to District 6 to make sure that it balanced. Not a big change, so it didn't fundamentally change that district that much. Also, as a result of those changes, there were fewer precincts that were pulled that was in the original 5 into District 1, which still comes down but doesn't take up all of Sam Cooper. In fact, under the last map, I believe it came all the way down to this street here. So we did preserve most of that with just part of that precinct, or one precinct here pulled out here up near Reed and Truman. So we still had to keep that in there for population purposes for District 1. And I will review the reason why for those that didn't attend the other meetings and might want to know. District 1, we moved that on this side of the expressway and didn't have it stretching all the way to Eads. So now it's more Raleigh, Egypt, what I would call a central Raleigh district that would include a small portion of what's considered Binghamton, or near Binghamton, more national, the national area. And also, we split a precinct here along the Covington Pike area to kind of keep that boundary on north of Covington Pike. So these were minor changes in terms of blocks. Most of it was done to make the changes Dr. Warren asked for and also to maintain population. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. As a result of that, as the discussions went on the other day, I was still able to keep a compact Cordova. That was a question that we went back and forth on. Had these similar concerns when going through the county redistricting process. As I said before, Cordova was split in, I think, 4, maybe 5, but at least 4 different districts over on the county side, and is now pulled together into one. Same thing here. Still trying to keep something compact here. Obviously, we've got this big hole here. That's the annexation. And this sliver here is just to pick up population. There were some questions as I go down south about District 3. We were able to clean some of that up and move a few blocks in to move it mostly all the way up to Winchester. I had to leave a few blocks here that we needed to keep population, and we moved part of 6 over to the North Oak Haven area to be able to maintain population and not continue to split, because I already split several blocks here to attain this, which is a cleaner and almost, it's almost near the way the district is now, with the exception of this carve-out. Okay. You need to go back over? No. My screen went out. Okay. All right. So with the exception of this spot here, 3 is generally almost like it was before, with the exception of maybe a few blocks here, an area here that was in 6, and an area here that was in 3. So I basically gave 3 what we call its boot back, or 6 its boot back, and I gave 3 its boot back. So you had boots or something that looked like a boot coming from 6 into 3 and vice versa into 6. So we cleaned that up and kind of made that, because I think before 6 was coming out to this area out here near South Germantown Road. So those are the changes, Mr. Chairman, that we made to this. I think we were able to fix all and any concerns, and I think this map ended up being about a 4% population deviation, which is pretty doggone good as compared to really any of the other plans we have. All of them are below 10, but I think this is the only one I've had that's been 4. All right. Any questions about 8, which is a reflection of the changes we made from 6 and 7? Good? Okay. All right. So we'll move on. I'm going to go. We haven't talked much about super districts, so I want to do something real quick before I move on to the public maps that I have. Yeah, it keeps going in and out. All right. And it may be because when I change screens or something, I don't know. There it is, it's on there. You'll try that one? Okay. All right, I'm going to go through a quick exercise. There's been a lot of questions about mapping and why this is done this way, why we're doing this, why decisions are made. So I'm going to start with just a super district map. So to clear up any questions about the what and whys, we're going to start with a super district because it's a little bit easier to show. If, in fact, the intent of splitting the city up in half to create the super districts, I want folks to know it's just a little bit more complicated than that. So I want to just, so for today's purposes, I'm going to sit here in real time, and I'm going to, if we start right here at the very top of the city, let's say we're going to split it in half. Now, obviously, because these things aren't symmetrical, it makes it a little bit difficult, but let's just do this. I'm going to do it real quick. You just watch me, real time. So the magic number is, I believe, 315 and some change for super districts. So we're trying to go straight down half the city. I'm still trying this. That's not a straight line, but let's just do it.
Well, it says 316.
Yeah, it's 316, 552. Yeah, I was calling it off the top of my head. So, all right. So we don't want to go west yet before we complete east. So let's just do this. Let's complete it. Let's watch it. Let's see what happens. When we reach that number, that magic number, we're at 196 now. All right, we're here. It's not going to take long for us to do this. Let's do this. All right, what number are we at? Right now we're at 229. So if we were just starting on the east side, trying to do 50% of the city, trying to keep a straight line, with no other considerations. All right, we're going to start from the bottom because we're at 338 now, so let's stop. So we're above that 316, 552. So let's go back. Let's take something out because we're over. So if we take something out there, and something out there, and something out there, and I'll say this. Okay, we're at about 319 now. Okay, let's stop there. This is what Super District 9 would be if doing nothing else. We're at about 319. It's hard to get to that 316 number because none of these are symmetrical or proportional. But I'm just showing you that if in fact you just split the city in half, this is what the map would start to look like, assuming all this was red, and I could fill that in now. But what we're faced with is, as we try to be proportional, and we try not to have any communities that feel that they've been disenfranchised. I'm sorry about that. Is we're trying to achieve not only neighborhood community balance, but also racial balance, so that we're not doing anything to any group that might be harmful from an electoral standpoint. So in doing so, you can quickly see what in fact the demographics would end up being if we just did that. They would be dramatically different from the current map if we just did that. Also, there would be folks that are over in the Midtown area that wouldn't be even be in in this Super District 9. So in fact, you don't necessarily have to draw Super District 9 into Midtown to actually have a district that meets the 316 number. That is being done to create balance within the districts. Now, we just have to be careful with that because we don't want to create issues on either side. But I think this is what people are missing when we start talking about redistricting. So not to get people all up in the air and all hot and bothered about the racial politics of Memphis, but there's also geography that we also have to take a look at as well. I'm going to show you something.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So this, just to have it illustrated like this, I think is very helpful and informative as well. I would almost ask that we have this printed out like this. You know, to say, if we were to do it like this is what we would end up with. Because it gives, I always say that if you cut this, and although I have to provide the caveat, it's not quite as simple as this. Cut the city in half, you got the east side being the Super District 9, the west side being Super District 8. But if we were to just to take the simplistic approach and do it that way, people still need to see, my colleagues still need to see that, in my opinion. It gives us a frame of reference. And so then, and you know, for one thing, this could be the starting point. For some, let's have that discussion. But I think that this is very helpful to basically say, if we just did it this way, you know, it's easy to look at. You know, we may not have a street that goes directly from the north side of town all the way to the Mississippi state line, but it still gives us something geographically to look at.
Part of the issue here is there are a couple of I guess factors we have to factor in. I try to be quick and brief. Changes in population, changes in racial geography, the overall population of the city. So there are a lot of factors that go into this, and they all shake out. If you just use just the math, then you come out with a different outcome. So to achieve the outcomes that most folks want, there are a lot of changes that have to be made and trade-offs that have to be made. Now, I'm not advocating this as the process, because as I said, this creates some other questions and some other issues that might raise fat. For one thing, it's going to basically eliminate a council member who lives in this area here, because right now this stretches over here. So I just want to make it clear that to council members, when questions come up, well, why are you doing it like this? There are things that have to be done to connect that area to the rest of this map, to make this map proportional. And I just did that, and that changed that to 338. Let's go to 8 and just take something off, just so we can balance it out a little bit. That's 329. Let's take that down. 322. 311 is a little low, but just this is just an example of the kind of trade-offs. Now, everything else, just for presentation purpose, would end up being red, all right, or something like that. Now, let me show you. I'm not going to try to pull up the current map, but I just wanted to illustrate this. I want to show y'all this. So oftentimes people think, oh, you ought to just be able to move this over here because I like the way this over here, and I want to be over here. And the populations within these precincts, if you look over to the right side, as I hover over that, they're not proportional or symmetrical, for lack of a better phrase. So from one area to the other, size does not matter. Area does not matter. I have my own opinion about what we could do to try to improve this, but this is the system we have to work with. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of show that before we got started with anything else. And lastly, let me just look at the demographics.
Let me have you go back one more time again.
Go ahead.
So still seeing this graphically, even if we do it the way that you originally presented it. I know that there was some other demographic information. There is a report that could show the demographic information of this entire highlighted section.
Yeah, it is. It's look, let me show you. As this is going on.
Yeah, it's out over there.
So right here. So here's the demographic, the total population. and the voting age population.
So if we could see, what would be helpful is to see all of that information together, because just looking at the blue and red without that, I'm just looking at colors. But we still say, here's why we do things in a certain way. I think that it still is instructive to my colleagues to basically say, here's why we just don't do it that way. And it, to me, would provide some basis and rationale for why things are done that way.
Right. And I don't want to question how things have been done in the past, but I take my hat off to whoever's been doing redistricting before, because it's a fine balancing act. And legislative bodies tend to believe that you ought to just be able to move stuff around and do whatever to achieve those goals. And they may want to achieve, because if we went through this exercise, I'm sure there'd be 5 people that saying, well, you ought to move this over there and move that over there to achieve what their desired map would be, but then it would also cause you problems on the other side. So it's a fine balancing act. Now, this is just with precincts without doing anything else elaborate. All right, let's come out of that. Let's look at the census numbers, because we need to look at that. These are just the raw numbers from 2010 to 2020. Again, fastest growing group, Hispanic. Obviously, the total population of Hispanic and Latino is not 90,443, which is what you would have if you were to build a district from. Significant number, but not quite 9443, but also geographically dispersed. So again, in order to make this work so that we're not creating a negative impact on any particular group in any particular community, there are trade-offs. And because, one, we don't live in chunks of 90,443, and because people live where they live, there's a certain amount of racial geography that plays in this as well. So it's not necessarily anything that the people doing redistricting is doing. It's the way we live. We live in the communities we choose to live in, and we don't live in chunks of 90,443. Community districts or single member districts or an expanded council, expanded size would lower that number, which would bring you closer to what really I'm hearing from folks. And I hear a lot of this: I want my community this, I want my precinct this. But what people really want is something that's closer to community districts, which are inherently single member, so to speak. They wouldn't necessarily be multi-member. So, but these are the building blocks of this stuff. I mean, it is what it is. The numbers are what they are. The geography is what it is. And I know legislative bodies are used to kind of having their way, instructing and telling people what to do, but it ain't that quite. It's not quite that simple. So anyway, I just wanted to show y'all that. Let me move on, because I thought that would be instructive. Now, here's a plan that I submitted a few weeks back. Again, doing the same thing, but I am sort of kind of staying with a similar pattern of what the current map is. Obviously, the current super district map takes in this part of Fraser and Raleigh. So I think I did it 2 different ways, excluding this and including this, but also stretching out so that you get a wide range of population. Stretching changes the demographics. It changes the population numbers to a certain degree, but once you get to a point, it all balances out. Now, I think this particular map was like a 0.1% or something deviation, so we were able to achieve that. Again, it's a little bit easier with the super district because you're only dealing with 2, but geography is difficult. All right. I am going to, I won't go through 9 because I haven't presented that to the other members of the council. It's some other changes, but what I will do next, if y'all don't have any questions, I will move to the maps that were submitted by the neighborhood groups or the public. I'm going to try to read this note. This is from Mr. Foster, Bennett Foster, Memphis for All. This is map, I'm going to try to read his note here, SC1. This map stays fairly close to the current redistricted map with a few changes for keeping some communities together and aligned. Sort of looks sort of similar to the one that we have. Makes a few things more compact. And those are the statistics. And on the other maps, I will in the presentation, it has the statistics in it on the ones that I have. This is SC2, and y'all have copies of all of these as well. This was developed with an overlay of accepted neighborhoods. This took a new view of the city council districts to try to align them as best as possible with defined neighborhoods. Big difference I see here is you have sort of a downtown, midtown to East Memphis sort of thing going on. And the trade-off, again, anytime you make any kind of major or radical changes, there are trade-offs. And on this one goes farther into the central east area. And there's also District 4 moves from the Central Gardens, Midtown to Orange Mound area to solely looks like which is a Parkway Village, Hickory Hills, Southeast sort of district. And 2 is similar to what it is today. 1 is sort of similar to what it is today with the exception of a few precincts. And 7 is combined into what one consider a Fraser and Raleigh, mostly Fraser and a piece of Raleigh. So that's their neighborhood, the second neighborhood map. And again, y'all have copies of these. This is a super district map submission. And again, these are I didn't create these, so I'm just going by the note that I have here. It's the 1, Super District 1. This map is close to the current Super District map, but creates a cleaner east-west map to segment the city in half. This is almost what I showed y'all a minute ago.
Yeah. Can you come out a little bit more?
Yep. Yeah. So if you started at the top and you went down and you tried to reach that magic number, this is what it looked like, just like I was drawing real time. So it sort of looks almost like that. Again, it's not coming into Midtown, and it would, just like the other map, would basically eliminate District 4 where it is today. One of the super district members would not be included in this map. So I have just full disclosure on that. All righty. And here's another look. It says this map provides similar representation in both super districts to the population of the city. Similar sort of theme. Instead of coming in the city east-west, it's coming in the city from the south to the north. And last but not least, now this is one I didn't try myself until because I knew what would happen with this one. I'd get run out. So, what if we flip the script, as they say, and just go 9 up, 8 down? Let me see what it says. A map that segments the city in half from north to south versus usual east to west. This allows interest to cut across that we traditionally think of as the city core with eastern parts of Memphis and provides potential for greater range of socioeconomic interest in both super districts. Now, this does include, I believe, part of Midtown, so that now the Midtown northeast part of the city is now coming together with the northern part of the city and also what is Cordova proper out in the city. And then 8 is river to county line going east.
What's so interesting, Dr. Harris, on the super district 8 and 9, the standard deviations on this list, I mean, it's less than 1%.
Yeah. It's easy to achieve that with those because you only have 2 districts. Mm-hmm. It's harder to do it with several districts because you're dealing with a lot of the geography is dispersed. Yeah. But yes, which makes them legal. So I think there's always the question of what's legal and what's not legal. I think there's been a lot of talk about what's legal. Let me just say that everything that we've presented, I know everything that I've presented thus far can pass legal muster. And I know there's been a lot of talk about the consent decree, and again, I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on television. However, the spirit of the consent decree was to outlaw at-large districts. If essentially the super districts start to behave based on geography, movement, population, and racial makeup, then we start to being back in the same shape. Again, I don't want to get into the legal things. I'm sure somebody would disagree, but essentially, if you had an old way of doing stuff that discriminated, and you found a new way to do it that over time discriminates, then it's just discrimination with a new face. So none of these maps at least do that, and I don't want to imply the current map does that, but the shapes and the structure of the current city council maps, if you look at over the last 20, I want to say 30 years, but at least the last 20, they really haven't changed that much, but the city itself has changed a lot. And so that's why I'm cautioning those that say, well, let's just keep everything the same. Nothing is what it was. In fact, some of these maps, areas were drawn at a time when we didn't really have your cell phones widely available. Yes, sir.
When these maps are presented, are you looking forward to how the populations may change between now and 2032?
That's exactly what I've tried to do. The problem with that is that legislative bodies tend to think in terms of 4 years. And, we have to think in terms of 10 years. And one of the things that I tried to do in the maps that I drew, one, obviously draw something that's legal, seek to draw something that's fair, seek to draw maps that have some level of elasticity that will last the test of time, and will be able to properly represent the population shifts that we see today. Specifically, what's happening on the west part of town, District 6, District 7 specifically, is they're either going to fall in the river, they have to go east. So the efforts by legislative bodies to preserve exactly what we have today is not going to be able to be maintained in the future anyway, because one, the population is shifting either east or radically to the west, depending on what a development is being built downtown and midtown. And depending on how fast that happens and how stable those communities are, and whether those people take the census, then that's going to determine whether or not they stay that way. So, for example, I know there was talk about the Whitehaven area and trying to keep that together. Well, I presented a map that would keep that Whitehaven together and compact, very compact, but you wouldn't have a District 6 and a District 3. You'd have to decide either 3 or 6. And one district would have to go further down to the east, where the population is shifting or being lost and moved around. And another one have to either stay central or move to the east or pick up stuff in the north. The problem is the North District, which is on the river as well, District 7, that district is either going to fall in the river or it's going to move east, either to Raleigh or to Midtown. So trying to maintain, so answer your question, to continue to try to maintain everything like it is the same now to satisfy the needs that we have today sort of does a disservice, and it's not going to last anyway because the population shifts aren't going to allow it. Now, it may last through this vote, but this vote doesn't have anything to do with how people are moving in or out of the city, moving in and out of neighborhoods, or shifts in population.
Thank you.
Any other questions about these? Yeah, I like this here. This is a whole nother look. I thought about trying something like this, but I didn't want to get run. I didn't want to get run out of the meeting. So I did. So I'm glad a public group did that. I'm finished unless there are any questions, at least for now. I'm gonna let Dr. Blumenthal come up. He has something he wants to present. I think he submitted some community maps as well that were, and I don't want to speak for you, they were based on zip codes and communities?
Generally, as close as I could get.
Okay, all right.
If you would start by stating your name and home address for the record, please.
Gregory M. Blumenthal.
Is this light on? Is it the green light on?
There we are.
Okay.
Hi, Gregory M. Blumenthal, 475 South Perkins Road, and that is currently in District 5. And I did not bring my laptop with me, so we're going to work from the paper copies we have there.
Okay, so if you would identify which ones, what is it?
Those are the ones that have my name on them.
Okay.
And I've got 2 of them, and I'll start with the single member district one, with the 7 single member districts.
Okay, GMBS Consulting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it has my name, Gregory Blumenthal, up on there in relatively big letters.
Well, I have this.
That would be my super.
Okay. And how would
the other one would look yeah. No, the one that has 5 going up and down.
No, we have that.
Dude, we can start with the super one. Why don't we start with the super one since y'all have that on hand?
okay, because it
Yeah.
appears that we don't have
Right.
the other one.
Okay, we'll start with the super one. Unlike the approach that Dr. Harris took, I did keep 9 going into Midtown. I actually this map only moves total of 4 precincts around between the 2, between 8 and 9 versus where they were, where they are currently. And it's really one of the reasons why it's relatively easy to keep the super districts in relatively tight is because a super district has 300,000 population, so 1% is 3,000. And these, whereas with the single member districts, you're talking about 90,000 population, and 1% is 900. And these precincts are none of the precincts is as small as 900 people. Some of them are down in the close to 3,000. You just have to play with them a lot, but it's a lot easier to balance out 3,000 here or there than 900 here or there when you've got precincts that are ranging from 4,000 to, in some cases, 13,000 people in a precinct. It's really hard to toss around a 13,000 person precinct. You've just got to live with it and work around it. And so getting the super districts in balance is much easier. And so the map that I have for 9 is, for all intents and purposes, Cordova, East Memphis, Midtown, University, out 385 and north of 385, and then you get about half of, looks like about half of Raleigh going into 9, and the rest is an 8, and that gives you a good balance, and it's really minimal change from the way it is now. And the guiding principle on 9 was just how little change could I make and and make everything in balance. And that on the supers. On the single member districts, have we finally gotten? Okay. All right, I will.
So let me ask a question while we're looking at that.
Sure.
Do you have the demographic information supporting this?
I have it at home. I didn't bring it. I do have the raw population numbers are on a spreadsheet that I provided with this, and I will say that District 9, as it is in the plan in the map that I'm submitting here, is slightly whiter and slightly more liberal at the same time than it is now.
Okay.
Because it picks up a little more in the Midtown Central Garden area. What?
What's the title?
Title of the other map should be. Put up. Hold on a second. Let me pull up the other map. Here we are. Got it. I will send you.
I'll use that one, Grant. Work it out.
while we're waiting, I'll go through what my guiding principle was on the single member district, which was trying to keep zip codes as correlates for neighborhoods as together as possible. And I do recognize that there's some places where that did not work well. I honestly can say that 38106 did not do well on this map.
When you say do well, what do you mean by
It's
that?
split three ways. 38106 is split into three districts. It is not a good map for 38106. Out in Cordova really has two zip codes, and one zip code goes to the district to the north, and the other goes to the district to the south.
Okay,
There we are. And you can see both of these things, and I think down in the south using airport as a divider between 3 and 6 works very well, but I expect the way that I took 5 north-south instead of east-west, meaning that you're separating Midtown from Walnut Grove, is not going to be taken well. And so in short, you've got one is kind of a northeast district, 2 is East Memphis, 3 is Hickory Hill Parkway Village, southeast Memphis. 4 is kind of a Midtown down through Cooper Young into Orange Mound and just north of the airport. 5 is everything in between East Memphis and Midtown, kind of a Highland corridor type thing. 6 is very, very much Whitehaven and South Memphis, and 7 is Fraser and North, and downtown as it touches the river. I'm not saying that I think that this is the best map that I've seen today. I actually like a map that Dr. Harris did not show. He was talking about. You did show Plan 9?
I should.
All right. He's going to show Map 9 next, and I actually like his Map 9 better than this one that I did, but I wasn't looking over his shoulder when he did Map 9, and this was what I was doing.
Now, the question that I have is, one of the things that let's just say, and I'm trying to, as best as I can, agnostically look at these maps. And one of the things that I said, or that I can say about the district maps as they were in 2015, 2019, is Super District 8 largely is 3, 4, 6, and 7, where the majority of the other districts are 1, 2, and 5 being Super District 9. what this map seems to do, what it seems to do, and what's going to be an easier sell is if there's more, for lack of a better word, overlay of taking the super districts and they still encompass the current districts that they have. I don't see these things being that congruous, so it looks like Super District 8 could have part of, so it was 7, 4, part of 5, 6 and 3. So from a confusion standpoint.
Right. The biggest problem is right at that line between where on one hand you have 6, 7, and 3, and on the other hand you have 1, 2, and 5. The line between those two has a lot of population. And so if you start tossing precincts around one way or the other, that's not going to be as big a problem on the super because you've got a lot of population that you can balance it against. When you start playing with it in the single member districts, you very, very quickly throw it into a tailspin. You start, if you're tossing 9,000 people from one district, one single member district to another, 9,000 people is 10%.
Yeah.
And that becomes virtually impossible to recover from.
I get it, but what I'm looking at here is how do we sell to the 13 people that are going to be voting on this, 6 of which represent super districts, and like I said, as agnostically as I can look at this, being a super member district, and let's say that, for example, there was a will to adopt relatively new district lines based upon the changes of population over the past 30 years. And I was running for anybody who'd be running for Super District 8, position 1, 2, and 3, essentially saying that now I'm going to have to represent essentially 5 single member districts versus 4 now. That's not going to fly.
Well,
and so how do we get past that? Because
there's a the snarky answer to that is that we shouldn't have super districts in the first place, but that's not an acceptable answer.
That's something that could be addressed. It's too late in the game for us to contemplate that now.
Right.
And you probably wouldn't have much disagreement with that if there was a great amount of time for us to deliberate this.
I guess, all right, when you look at 9 versus the single member districts, all right, up at the top, right above 1, there's a couple districts that are in 7 that comprise a little over 9,000 people. If you give that to 1, you have to figure out where you're going to take 9,000 people out of 1. I guess you could hand that over in Cordova over to 2, but then you've got 9,000 people you've got to get out of 2. And I don't see it. I don't see where you get 9,000 people out of 2 in any manner that is clean. That's where, because you have to move. It's like a wave crashing through. When you move something from 7 into 1, and you have to move something from 1 into 2, and then something in 2 into, say, 3, and you don't have the right numbers to be able to do that. You can try and break up the precincts by census tract. The census tracts are about half the size of the precincts. usually, and sometimes that can help. But some of those are still awful big. And if you start going any smaller, if you start going to the block level, you get into the issue with the blocks is that the census does not guarantee the sanctity of the population number of the blocks. In fact, they specifically state that those block numbers have been infused with error because they consider them small enough that that some of the data could be individually identifying, so they, in their infinite wisdom, decided to throw in some error there. So at that point, the blocks become tricky to work with. I'm not saying this is a perfect map, but I'm sure that because I have this in a format that I could sit down with Dr. Harris with, and we could go over. I mean, we've done things like this before, and just play with it for an evening. But it'll be tricky. It's not gonna. The math is not our friend here.
Okay. Understood. But with the math not being our friend, that's going to make it an even harder sell.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't do this with the illusion that I thought this was going to be the best map. I did this mainly because we were discussing I was asked in the previous mapping subcommittee, all right, how do we define neighborhood? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, we can try zip codes. And this was as good as I felt I could do off of zip codes. Yeah.
Well, appreciate the efforts. Definitely do. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll only just be brief and go over the map. I actually didn't want to present this one because I didn't get a chance to present it at the last meeting. Or at least it didn't come up for a discussion in the last meeting. It was as a result of continued changes I tried to make. So it's appropriate to show it today. Because if there are people watching, there may be questions. I may have to come up with a plan 10 before we get to the meeting Wednesday.
So sort of where
I was just going to say this is the subcommittee. So
yeah.
Right,
okay.
And so along those. So the next meeting though is scheduled for when?
Wednesday. This coming Wednesday.
Okay.
So maybe it might be prudent for me to at least present it because there may be people watching and listening. And that gives me enough time to change it because I'm sure someone's going to want something changed between now and Wednesday. So, and let me bring it up since I did present copies of it. And let me bring it up. And I'm waiting on this thing to come back on. Oh. It was up. My bad. Sorry. All right. And we'll go through this quickly. I know time is moving on. So I have continued to try to focus on keeping or changing District 1 such that it doesn't necessarily have to, for lack of a better phrase, snake out to the Eads area. In the other iterations that I had of maps. On this copy, I'm allowing District 1 to sort of take the pattern that it's taking on the current map, the existing city council map, with just a few minor changes on the eastern part of the district. This will, in fact, split the area of Cordova here again. A little less impactful, but it still splits it. But this is just another look. Again, I'm trying to achieve some questions that came up for District 5. So I just wanted the committee to know that, as Dr. Blumenthal said a minute ago, when you move one thing, you're likely to move a lot of other stuff to achieve. And I think one thing before I sign off here, we need to appreciate is just how delicate the balance is for these districts and for the precincts, and how the changes can affect something, and then just the geography. I mean, if you look at, as I said before, 6 and 7, I mean, they've got nowhere to go but in the river or go east. Mm-hmm. And if we're trying to continue to achieve the status quo, at least in the short term, if not necessarily long term, it makes it extremely difficult because there's no way to move. You can go north, you can go south. You can't go, normally you can go north, south, east, and west. But in this business that we're in, you can only go north, south, and east. Mm-hmm. And so to maintain the status quo makes it very difficult. I know that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes for legislative bodies, but this is, to achieve the ability to keep everything the same, that's tough. So I still tried to build in the opportunity, as Ian asked earlier, for these to grow and set them up for the future, but this still cracks up Cordova. And one of the reasons why I keep going back to the Cordova area, and I want to make it clear and put it on the record, I don't live in Cordova. I don't have any property in Cordova. I have no plans in moving to Cordova. The reason why I keep bringing Cordova up is we had a similar resistance on the county side to combining the Cordova area. And I just want the council to be extremely careful in its deliberation and decision-making, because historically there might not have been a good reason to combine a community and give that community its own district because of population, lack of population, or a variety of reasons. But once we can clearly show that this area has enough population to support a district, it's going to be very, very, very hard to continue to maintain the status quo and to essentially crack up an area that could support a district. Again, I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on television, but if we're intentionally cracking up an area that is majority minority, we are dancing very close to a Section 2 violation of the VRA. Very close. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to get into the legal minutia of this, but if an area can support, and these are good principles, we talked about communities of interest, contiguousness, compactness, non-voter dilution, and splitting up neighborhoods and areas essentially dilutes them. Now, there may be a reason why to do that, because you need to pick up population.
Can you give me those 4 again?
Okay, first, proportionality. That's the legal part. Equal population. Number 2, you don't want to dilute minority voting strength, okay, without going into the legal minutia. I'm trying to stay away from that. Because I know the VRA back and forth, but I'm not a lawyer. Number 3, compactness and contiguousness. Now, compact is in the eye of the beholder because shapes sometimes look funny because precincts look funny. So the reason why some of this stuff looks funny, you say, well, it look like you ought to just be able to put these little jigsaw puzzles together and make it all one. It ain't quite that simple because of the fact that the precincts that they're built off are not symmetrical. Got a few more. Keeping communities of interest intact. And respecting political boundaries. Now, the latter are not necessarily legally required. So part of respecting legal boundaries in this case, I intentionally put the names of the elected officials on there. Legally, we're not required to keep folks in their district. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to draw people out of their districts and dislocate not only the leadership, but also if we're changing the district, we're changing folks where they vote, and then we're going to change the leader. That's probably not respecting political boundaries and interests. Communities of interest can also be in the eye of the beholder.
Let me interrupt you for
Go ahead.
1 second. Ms. Hord, is there a way for Dr. Harris to share his screen in Teams so that the viewing public can see it?
Yeah, well, I can just join Teams. You want me to send it to you? Well, they wouldn't necessarily be able to see the map at scale like we're doing now. They'll see the presentation.
I think what they're saying is that when they view it online, it's too light.
Oh,
And maybe Teams would be a better way.
okay, send me the Teams link. Let me come off of here. So those are the top things. And if you look at that evaluation form I gave y'all early on, some folks call it a rule, but I call it an evaluation form. It lists all those things and gives those things their priority and their weights, so that it takes a lot of the anecdotal and the political arguments out of it. Obviously, this is a political process because it's got to be voted on. But how do we do that in a way that's the most objective? One, by having a legal framework, but the legal framework is just one. I can draw a legal map, and I said this at the county, from Germantown to Orange Mound, and it would be legal. But oh, I need to go into Teams. Let me check my email. But would that keep those communities together, and would that be right? So just because we do a map that's legal, that doesn't necessarily mean that map represents the best interests of the community. So that's why I'm going with this. So I just want to caution, because right now it's easy to just say, hey, we ought to just because we got the votes to do something and it's considered quote unquote legal, well, that doesn't necessarily make it right and fair. Give me 1 second. I'm going to join the Teams meeting and try to bring this map up. All right, I'm going to join. I may get some feedback.
Perhaps if you mute it on your computer, you may not.
We had that problem the other day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Okay.
Let me leave my mic muted in the Teams. Okay, am I in Teams? Can you see me? You just admitted me. Okay, good. So you need me to bring that presentation up?
Yeah. Now, the other part too, do we have PDF versions of
Yes.
what we have before us today?
Yes.
So has that been distributed? Well, I guess it was first came out here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so after this, do y'all have a means of, what do y'all usually do after we have some of these meetings? Do you send it out to the full committee?
The website, you can go and view the maps on the website, council maps. We have on our website, we have a link to the Redistricting Committee.
Okay.
And all the maps are on that website.
Okay.
Can they see this now? I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
If somebody's trying to see it, can they see this? Okay, all right.
So, trying to think this through.
There's a redistricting link from the Memphis City Council's website that has all the maps that have been submitted stored on the website.
And also the presentation
You
sheet.
can view and download, yeah.
Okay. I know that's for the public's consumption, but I'm talking about for council.
Committee members?
Well, for committee members and council. So perhaps perhaps, so in the meeting Wednesday, Wednesday is somewhat slated to be one of the last meetings, right? We're coming up on the last meetings, right?
I think
Not
so.
sure. We haven't heard from Attorney Wade
Okay.
whether or not.
I know it's coming close.
Okay, so I think we need to operate along those lines. So I'm thinking to this point, though, we probably need to distill this down for recommendations to come out of the committee that are going to come from council. So what I don't want to do is overwhelm people with 24 different maps, but still know that what may be helpful today is still just sort of send this out to basically say, we're sort of trying to catch you up of what's been presented for your review. Send it out to, although it's out there for the public to see, it's a different thing going out there to the website to see it. I don't go to the website. Can't tell you the last time I went there, but I looked at my email today. So if we can send the email out to basically say, here's where we are with this, so that everything doesn't seem brand spanking new when people are looking at it and we're coming up on the witching hour for all of this.
Okay. So just for clarification, you want all the maps that have been submitted thus far to be disseminated to all the committee members?
Yes.
So noted.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's several, and you know, we started out with an extreme difference in what we have, a radical change, and then we've slowly worked our way back to something that's close but different. Even with the changes that I proposed, most of them are not radical. Most of them are just changes, and they reflect a common sense, keeping as many communities together as possible. Dr. Blumenthal showed more of a zip code way of doing it through communities, because if you use any rationale like that, and the political is taken out, and I think that's one reason why he said, "Well, this is a bad map, and nobody's gonna like it." Well, you probably expect that if you start with a blank sheet of paper, without going through this process and being scrutinized, then that's what you're going to come up with. But that's the purest form of what we do here, and that's going to look radically different than what we have here, because we're trying to maintain not only the fact that we're trying to keep communities together, but we're also not trying to uproot leaders who've been elected in these areas as well. So again, that respecting political boundaries and not putting folks all over the map, and also not trying to knock folks out of their district, or even put two people in the same district, because we had that issue in the county. That's what we've tried to do, is be as thoughtful and careful, but also recognize the growth and the changes that have occurred in the city over the years from a demographic, but also mostly from a population standpoint, and be fair to the public and be fair to all communities. Now, does that mean that every community gets every single precinct and area that they want? If we do that, then all we're doing is we're maintaining the status quo, but we're not necessarily doing the right thing long term for the city. Because whether or not we change it today, the patterns of the way people live and move are going to change them anyway. And unless there are any questions, this map, Plan 9, I think, was at 5% deviation. These are the population numbers, and I believe these are the vape numbers, the voting age population numbers for Plan 8 and for Plan 9. And that is all I have, unless there are any other questions. Did we have anybody online that had any questions in the team, in the chat?
Okay. Ms. Robinson, if you are viewing, listening, if you could submit in the chat what your question is. I don't have it, but we'll try to get that question answered and asked publicly.
I'll give her a second to ask her question. I'll just get prepared.
Okay, no questions. She texted me and said no questions. Okay.
All right. If there are no questions from anybody here, I guess that's all I have. I've submitted these for email. I think I sent them in 11/17. I will send. I will go back into to ArcGIS and create 24 by 36 scale, and I'll send those to y'all as well.
Yeah. I was thinking that's going to be quite large.
Yeah, it is.
Most of the maps are. That's why it's going to be difficult to email some of them. There may be several emails we have to send to the group, to the members, because of the size. We can reduce them, but some email networks or networks only take up to 9, maybe 13, 15 megabytes.
But gotcha. Okay.
And I think the city is like 50,
Might be 25, 50 or something like that.
city maximum megabyte, if an email is what, about 15, 20?
Yeah, we can zip them up.
Okay.
Maybe we don't need to send large maps for everybody. 11 by 17, you can see everything.
Yes.
I just wanted there to be one scale map because some folks want to see the streets. I know some folks want to see what streets that have been moved to verify what we're saying is actually what they're seeing. So you only probably need one large map. I don't think everybody needs to print off a big map.
Okay.
Great.
And then what I was thinking about too, perhaps if, and I don't know how they are organized. If we could say, well, this is the map that came out of meeting 1. These are the maps that came out of meeting 2. These are the maps that came out of meeting 3. Break it up that way, where one versus having all of them in one particular file to do so. That might be a way to avoid that.
We can do it by date.
Okay. So that was the mapping updates. Any data updates? Okay. Next on the agenda, committee discussion items, update on mapping tools, scenario planning. Don't know anything there. Planning sessions, map review, and mapping precincts. I don't know what's meant there.
We pretty much covered everything.
And everything, okay. Update on frequently asked questions. None there. We ask if there are any questions and answers. Our next meeting date is Wednesday at what time?
March 22nd
At
at 3:30.
3:30. Okay.
Wednesday, March 22nd at 3:30.
So next meeting is Wednesday, March 22nd at 3:30 p.m. here in the council committee room. No, I don't have any closing remarks, Dr. Harris. Any closing remarks? Dr. Blumenthal, any closing remarks? Okay. Well, that's it. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Seeing no